Welcome, everyone. As we talk about the ocean breath and also ocean frequency of breath, we've been introduced to the whole concept about ocean waves being every fourth or every fifth. While I've noticed this phenomenon when I was on the beach, um, I got some introduction into exactly what happens. And so we will be doing understanding about how the ocean's waves are formed and also tides. I've sent everybody a video today to notice exactly what happens. And fascinating, there's difference between tides and waves. Tides happen during the situations where the earth is here, uh, because the moon starts rotating around the earth. On this side, there's a big pull, and the other side, there's a tide and there's ebb. The moon comes around, the sides of the tide changes. Tide is just a gravity pull. The earth can keep the moon in the orbit. That's bigger gravity. Moon doesn't have that much of force, but it just has the water part that comes up. So it's the entire ocean surface that comes up extra. That's the tide, and the opposite is the ebb, high tide or low tide. Now, during the new moon day, the the moon is between the sun and the earth. Sun also causes tides. Sun is a bigger gravity, and you will see that on the video. And it's very beautifully depicted. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is tide is one phenomenon which can raise the whole wall of the level of the sea or ocean, and can cause a little bit extra wave possibility. However, the waves are mainly caused by a few other factors. Wind is one of the main factors. And as we do the practice breathing, we'll be comparing the whole exactly how it happens in our body. So that's one. It can be the surface of the earth. It can be rocks underneath. It can be so many other areas where the waves can change. And we'll have the correlation through our body about how that happens. That goes to the 11F phenomenon. Now, one more thing I want to clarify before we go further is the fact that people think that moon, because we have 70% body water in the body, that during the moon phases, the body gets affected. Even I had understood that initially. There's a lot more data to it right now. There's no enough evidence to suggest that our moods, our body, stuff like that, what we talk about, the scientific evidence is not very clear. So we cannot just say that because it's, water, internal water also affected. We are really too close to the earth, and we are too tiny. The earth itself is fine. It moves up and down the tide, but we are a very small speck. And so the whole idea about the water changing with the moon phases is not as clear scientifically. Number two, there's also talk about menstruation and also menstrual cycle and the moon phases. There is no clear evidence on that. There is no clear correlation on that. Please recognize that science is science, and we need to have a little bit more understanding about it. Mood also the same way. They say, oh, there's a full moon and everybody is going crazy. Psychiatric literature, I was reviewing for just checking this out. There is no clear-cut evidence about that either. That, well, there's a moon is high moon and people go crazy, etc. That has no clear evidence. So, okay, anecdotal, occasionally some people behave this way, that may be different. Poetry is different. In poetry, we write a lot of stuff in the moon and talk about the lover and all that stuff. That's a different story. But otherwise, now there's one study that I want to mention was a sleep study. This is a fascinating study I came across. And this is from Sweden. From 1900 to 2001, not 1900, 2001 to 2019. It's a 19-year study of about 850 people. That's a huge study. And the study was done mainly because they were doing the sleep study. They were basically checking out for sleep apnea. And the participants did not know that they will analyze later about the quality of sleep. And there was it's called polysomnograph, where they keep the electrodes on here, the head and chest and face and all that. That's called polysomnography, PSG. That's a sleep study. And so it's a very accurate study. And they found out about men and women that men have a less, they have difficult sleep pattern more than women. In fact, men slept 20 minutes, less, and their disturbance was also more. And there were some changes that were happening. They were not able to explain why that was so, but all across there were 3 or 4 parameters that they used in the study. I will give a photograph of this study, just the conclusion part, and I'll put it on so you realize that was the only study that I found about sleep. And this is a very interesting study because it's a very long term, almost 20 years worth of data. And so this is the only thing that I found. And I just want us to be aware that there are some myth stories out there. And we need to be very clear about this from the science perspective. So we'll continue with our 11 F's that affect our breath. The first one is a force. F is the force of the winds, as I said, force of the winds. In fact, that's the main factor. And how we correlate that with our breath pattern, we'll go further details as the week goes along. Thank you.